Good morning. My name is Elise Martel, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. And now I teach at a university. But in the 1980s, I was a high school dropout. I stopped attending school second week of freshman year until what would have been, on paper, second semester of junior year. Though I'd hung out with the burnouts at door 4 on occasion, it had been 2 years since I had stepped foot in school proper. When I dropped back in, administration was understandably a little confused about what to do with me. So they did what administrators do. They gave me a placement test, a misplacement test. Escorted by Vice Principal Miss Pikulich to Mr. T's biology class, I sat under watchful eye with his big, bald bobblehead trained on me and took the test. I got a 100. Mrs. Pikulich, rhymes with, and Mr. T drew the only logical conclusion: I must have cheated. So they gave me another test, which I likewise aced. Believing more in their personal assessment of me than the academic assessment they administered, they concluded that before the days of smartphones and under watchful eye and bobblehead, I somehow had a magical line on exams. And that is how I made my way into Mr. Stewart's 4th period remedial science class, or as it was sadly, but more commonly known as, dummy science. A couple weeks into class, Mr. Stewart rolled in a skeleton. I thought, now this I can get behind. And he asked, is there anybody who would like to name the parts of the skeleton? I must have had an out-of-body experience, because next thing I knew, my hand shot up. And feeling like a contestant on The Price is Right, I made my way down the stairs, past Anita and Sargon, who were making out, and Joey, who I think was huffing glue, and found myself in front of the class and next to the skeleton. Hello, I said to the skeleton, followed by carpal, metacarpal, phalanges, throwing in medial, distal, and proximal for a good measure. I turned around and caught a glimpse of Mr. Stewart's puzzled face on my way back to my natural habitat, which was back row, left corner of the classroom, where, with my head down and hair and face, I played with the gum stuck under the desk and wondered at what just happened. I caught my breath. A couple weeks later, the unit changed. We were now on cells. And again, Mr. Stewart asked, could anybody come to the front of the class and name the parts of the cell? I popped up and screamed, Golgi body, endoplasmic reticulum, and sat back down. This time, I could not slink out of class so easily, which was a skill I perfected early on. And he stopped me and he said, what are you doing in here? And I said, I can't get out. He said, you should not be in this class. I am going to talk to administration and get you transferred. And I said, holding out my finger, my pinky, like a seven-year-old on a dare, I said, pinky bet. Next class rolls around, he gives me his report. He went to speak with Miss Pickle, rhymes with, and other administrators who said that they could not transfer me. I had to remain in the class. So we struck a deal. I would eat my lunch 4th period, which was during remedial science/dummy class, either in his classroom or in the bathroom, because my ID was yellow, and that meant I could not leave the building at 4th period. And then 7th period, I would cut my own lunch to go to his AP biology class, which I proceeded to do. And it was a whole different game in there. Here were all the kids I hadn't seen since 3rd grade when my mom had to pull us from a selective enrollment school. I thought they had all moved. There was not a banger in sight, and all of the brown kids were South Asian. We got to dissect a pig. I got to dissect a kidney, and this was most thrilling to me, as my identical twin sister was scheduled to give me hers later that semester. Interestingly, when administration found out that I was in need of a kidney, the label of me changed from problem student to sick student. Now I could go to the bathroom anytime I wanted without security hassling me. But the label switcheroo was not retroactive. It could not overwrite the delinquent, the problem child, the juvie, the burnout. And I remained in remedial science. Nevertheless, being in Mr. Stewart's AP biology class changed the way people read me moving forward, as did being a sick student instead of a problem student. Changed how authority read my behavior and in my actions, but most importantly, being in Mr. Stewart's AP biology class changed how I saw myself. I now had all kinds of new material for my 155 Devon Avenue bus ride fantasies. If you've taken the bus, you're probably familiar and have your own bus ride fantasies. Now my bus ride fantasy did not involve or depend upon discovering I'm a secret heiress or being discovered for some latent talent that was hidden even to me or winning the lottery. Now my possible futures involved images of books and libraries. When I got to college, because thanks to Mr. Stewart, I made my way to college, I learned that there is a whole vocabulary, concepts that could help me articulate what I experienced during this misplacement test and help me make sense of it. Some concepts in particular are especially important for my understanding of this. The first is labeling theory, and the second is self-fulfilling prophecy. Labeling theory is actually a theory that comes out of the sociology of deviance, which is basically, rules, norms, and people break them, and how those breakers are seen. And it goes something like this, that people label you in some way, and then respond to you and treat you on the basis of the label applied. Labels are particularly sticky when they are negative and when they are wielded by people in authority. A self-fulfilling prophecy is this idea that when you make a prediction, the prediction is likely to come true because it influences our behavior, which then makes it happen. Self-fulfilling prophecy theory tells us that teachers who label students a success find that those students are likely to succeed. Students who are labeled troubled or daft or less than bright or a juvie or a failure are likely to fail. This does not happen by magic. It is not simply that we internalize the labels levied at us and act as if in accordance, though there is that part of it. Most importantly is that the labels applied channel our opportunities, channel the way we move through the world into either places with welcome mats where we can grow and succeed, or it will channel us away from those places and into, say, remedial science. Being in remedial science reminded me of how much I hated school at the time. And I had promised myself that I was going to make it a full week without cutting when they put me in remedial science. I kept the promise to myself, and I kept going. But the labels open some doors while others are closed in our faces. Last semester, I was teaching a stats class, and I had 2 students named Lily in my class. I will call them Lily 1 and Lily 2. Lily 1 came to class all the time. She sat in the first row. She always had her purple pen and her yellow notebook ready to go. Did all the homework, came to office hours, all the stuff. She did all the things. Lily 2 periodically dropped in, I could relate, and did not do her homework, did not come to office hours, did not really engage. When it came time for midterm exams, both Lilies scored a C. And as I do with all of my students, I sent an email saying, hey, let's touch base about the exams, regardless of the score. And so Lily 1, the one who comes to class all the time, I sent her an email saying, hey, great work, keep coming, see, it's getting easier, I knew you could get it, you should be so proud. And Lily 2, I sent an email to, which said, hey, Lily 2, you really need to start coming to class a little bit more because the material is getting harder and more complex. And stats is just one of those subjects you have to do. You can't read it, you just have to practice it. So you should come and do your work. The next class, both Lilies were in attendance, which by itself was noteworthy. But Lily 1 was all sad, and Lily 2 was bright and happy. I couldn't figure it out. Can you figure it out? What I did? Oops, I sent the email meant for Lily 1 to Lily 2 and sent the email for Lily 2 to Lily 1. I was mortified. I felt so bad, but not nearly as bad as Lily 1 felt, who actually shared the email with her mom, and her mom was understandably really angry that she hadn't been coming to class. We had a good talk, a good cry, a good laugh, and a good hug, and it worked out, and I learned a huge lesson. And as for Lily 2, I did nothing. And the thing is, she started coming to class all the time and doing her work. She needed the boost. She needed an occasion to rise to. And my email, accidental though it was just what she needed. And I, again, learned a very valuable lesson. What if every student got to take AP classes, or honors classes, or IB classes, or all the other initial classes? What if we had to have selective enrollment high schools, what if they were all lottery-based? What if we didn't have these tracks, but we expected every single student to rise to an occasion presented to them and to encourage them to make their own if there isn't an occasion to rise to? What if we didn't reproduce disparities by social class, by race, by ethnicity, by national origin, every day over and over and over again anew? What if? My message to students, to humans of Earth, is to know who you are beyond the labels, to know where you are and in relation to the exits, to rise to occasions and make your own if they don't appear, and to put a spoke in that self-fulfilling prophecy wheel, because you never know what might happen. Well, I never got credit for Mr. Stewart's AP biology class, which I only learned in college stood for advanced placement and not alternate period, like 7th period, 8th period, alternate period. While I never got credit for it, I did go on to get a PhD in sociology. That's all it took. Thank you.